your time today for this presentation. I won't keep you long. I've sent it to you. Our screen's not working, but you've got it in front of you there. So I'm just going to go through it slide by slide. Ask any questions at any time, or you can wait to the end. I'm not fussed. I may answer your questions by the time we get there, but of course, charm away. Alright, so I'm going to present to you, I guess, as if you don't know anything about the new Act, and that's what we're going to be doing with everybody, just so that we know that we've covered everything. So we'll start with the Work Health and Safety Act 2011. Now, this Act is basically relatively new. I mean, 2011 not so, but it took over the Occupational Health and Safety Act 1991 on the 1st of January 2012. And WA and Victoria are yet to adopt the model, but it's in the process. So I will state, and I'll be saying it throughout the presentation, if you want to refer to anything, WorkSafe Victoria is a great website, but WorkSafe Australia as well oversee the Act and the implementation in Victoria. So the Model Work Health Safety Act, it basically aims to provide a national framework to help protect health, safety and welfare of all personnel in the workplace and anyone who may be affected by the work. And so it's bringing a national framework, an umbrella, if you will, over all states, instead of each state having its own sort of guidelines and regulations. So that's the aim of the model. And I've popped a link there to worksafe.vic.gov.au where you can have a look a little bit further into that and your team. Okay, so slide 2 is basically just a drilling down about the provisions of the Act and what it aims to provide. So it aims to provide safety from risk in the workplace by eliminating or at least minimising risk, and you'll hear me talk about that a bit. Sometimes we can't eliminate a risk altogether. Effective and fair representation for workers with regards to work, health, safety activities, including consultation and opportunities to participate. Again, that's a legal requirement, and I will go through that further. But consultation is something that we have legally need to do with all our workers, or at least representative. Everyone needs to be informed and have an opportunity to participate. Work with and enable our employee organisations, so our unions and things like that, to be involved in work health and safety. We don't have really a union in our organisation, but they're there in others. So work with organisations and employees to create a safe and healthy workspace. Support organisations in training and educating the workers. So the Act and the regulatory bodies do have a lot of information to enable us as an employee to educate, and establish a framework for employers to work within and better understand compliance. So enable employers to know how to abide by the Act, how to carry out, and to avoid penalties and non-compliance, and what that means as well. And to continually develop our employees to improve their standards of practice, which is, of course, goes without saying in work health and safety. So we'll pop to the next slide. I'm just going to drill down a little bit further. So you have the Act, and this is usually represented in a pyramid. So you have the Act, and then underneath you've got your regulations. Your regulations are legal requirements in the workplace, and they're rules. They're rules that set out the Act and is to be applied and followed, and penalties are involved if you don't. So some regulations within our industry: workplace injury, rehabilitation and compensation regulations, OC health and safety regulations, dangerous goods, storage and handling. They apply to us here in the office. So codes of practice, they are drilling down further, and they just explain practically how to abide by these regulations. And some examples in our workplace would be the manual handling code of practice, indoor air quality, and making sure that we all do have proper ventilation and air conditioning and things like that within the office. First aid in the workplace, and a big one here is code of practice for prevention of occupational overuse syndrome. So that's your repetitiveness of your typing and using your mouse, sitting for prolonged periods, a huge health and safety issue. So there are code and practice around that, and we need to inform our workers about best practice with that too. I've just popped a link here as well, Office-wise, and it's just the guide specifically to the office to help prevent injuries and things like that. So I think it's really important to look at that link. There's some things that you might not even thought of, or your workers may not have. Okay, next slide. So I mentioned earlier about communication and consultation, how important that is. So communication of work health and safety in the workplace. Everyone in the workplace must be made aware of their obligations, and everybody has obligations and rights when it comes to work health and safety, and it's important that people know that. The following lists the methods used to communicate. So we have our policies and procedures that you're aware of. All workplaces legally need to have them. Procedures must be recorded in writing and distributed to all workers. So when we start, we know that we give our workers a pack of all our policies and procedures. Standard operation procedures, they're quick guides or fact sheets how to undertake a particular job-related task. Again, we don't really deal with them, but your construction companies and things, or research companies would. Our job descriptions, they outline our work health and safety responsibilities and our positions of the duty of care. So we need to make sure that they're up to date and your workers are aware of them. Staff training, beginner induction, and it's ongoing because there's going to be changes to policies, procedures, updates in the workplace environment. So that's another communication method. Reports that often with our senior managers, we do report on our injuries at our management meetings, as you're aware. Incident and accident forms are another form to be completed by workers involved in an accidental incident and used to assist with treatments, insurance claims, updating policies and procedures. And as you know, they're really important as well. If there's an incident work, we need as a manager to make sure that is documented for the employee, but also for us as well when we do have those claims come through. And then we have our signs when you've seen when there's wet. Something wet in the workplace, we do pop that hazard sign up, and then you see it in shopping centres. So moving on, the consultation of managing work health and safety in the workplace. Again, it's a legal requirement that we, the Work Health Safety Consultation Cooperation and Coordination Code of Practice, it's a mouthful. It's a two-way process between the person conducting the business, so the PCBU, and their workers, or the HRSR representatives. So they must be consulted. All employees must be consulted when you're identifying a new hazard or assessing a risk, deciding how to eliminate or reduce it, making decisions about the work environment, making changes that affect employees' health and safety, and making changes or deciding on new health and safety procedures. Okay, so just again, you will hear us talking a lot about this. We really want to get the process underway. We want people to be aware that they have a say, and that managers need to also to do that consulting. And our methods, again, the HSRs, health and safety reps, they're always consulted. There's other methods that we can, we have a health and safety committee depending on what we're looking at. They can assist in meeting the legal requirements and help create policies and procedures. Working groups come together for one-off health and safety issues. So we moved office recently, as you know, and we had that working group come together and they covered off that. So that's an example of that. A meeting for employees to attend at their discretion. So, I'm sure they must happen. We don't particularly have not had that. You're right. And whatever combination of methods, they must adhere to the requirements and the guidelines. So this is why this training is happening. We need to be aware of our requirements and our guidelines, and that we're adhering to those. Once an issue has been raised, it's important that it's responded to and addressed in a timely manner. That there's a duty of care to all the employees that are affected. The issue should be communicated straight away. We must, as an employer, resolve it promptly. If it can't be solved, it needs to be escalated. The resolution, when it is here, must be communicated, and just remembering using appropriate language for your audience, and that's going to differ when you're speaking to management and staff, as you know. So, and just being mindful of that. Moving on, identifying and informing workers about hazards. So I've popped this in. So if a hazard's been identified as a possible source of harm, what we then do is we assess the risk and the likelihood that hazard will cause harm and its impact, and then we put a control in place to either eliminate or reduce the hazard as far as reasonably practical, and that obviously means as best we can.
Okay. So currently our process is to fill in a form when we identify a hazard, which seems like a little manual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's a bit disjointed. So
agree, and we it's funny you should mention that, because I do have some links further down in the presentation, but we have moved that online.
Okay.
So that's going to be part of our overarching or new, shall I say, training that we're doing for work health and safety. We are going to be doing it and rolling it out for all new people coming on board, but we're also going to be re-inducting every single person.
Okay.
But having said that rollout's going to take a little bit of time. So I do want you to let your people know, and we will be sending out an email and letting people know and communicating it anyway, but let them know this is our new process. It's on the intranet and the links are in there, so thank you for asking, and I will point them out when we get there.
Okay.
Some examples of some known hazards in our industry would be the repetitive work that I mentioned earlier, and the risk is musculoskeletal disorder. Now, the control would be, we can't eliminate it as such. Some people are more prone, but we can almost, if we educate around, the hand and risk exercises, taking breaks, expanding the job to include other tasks. So we're not always just sitting there typing or always using our mouse, we're doing something else. And just using tools such as wristpads and things like that. So just being aware of that, letting your people know and order them. It's approved already.
Okay.
Do it. Sitting for extended periods of time. So, obviously the problems with them is your postural problems, slow metabolism, muscle weakness, cancer has been linked to sitting, depression, diabetes, and they're actually calling sitting the new smoking, believe it or not. And when you hear that, you just think, wow, crazy. So we have stand-up desks that are going to be rolled out. Think about things like walking meetings, the educating everybody around the need to get up, stretch every 15 minutes actually. So, which seems like often, but it has to happen, and just taking the stairs where possible. So that's just sort of your general stuff. And another, I guess, is tripping on objects. So you notice a lot of people here seem to build boxes up around their desks, and we're often going around and telling them this is a hazard. So they're known hazards in our industry, and we're controlling them with our safety audits and signs to eliminate the hazard, and they can be eliminated. There is no reason why everyone needs to have those boxes building up around the copiers. So there's some known ones at our industry. So just moving on, I've just popped a little diagram here, and this is where I've popped in the links as well, where to report your hazards, your injuries, your near misses, and you can see if you hover over those, you'll have a link there.
Yep.
And some more links that I've also put in is the pages to risk management, which are all new. So it would be great if you could just draw your staff's attention to that, and the workplace station risk assessment for our standing up desks that we are rolling out. So another really important one to be aware of. And then I've got that diagram there that just what the process is when reporting. So it's quite self-explanatory. How do we inform our workers of hazards? Manuals, job descriptions, SOPs, reports, meetings, signs, newsletters, whatever's applicable to what we're dealing with.
Okay. And so am I meant to be training my staff with this presentation?
Okay. What we would like is to have this brought up in your staff meetings, I can come and present if you like.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. I know I won't need much time because, like I said, we are rolling out something bigger than this.
Yeah.
But we do need to sort of just start getting that conversation going.
Sure.
And that's what we want to do with this. So that when our training starts coming out, and I will mention it when I talk to your people. They know what's happening,
Yep.
why it's happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
We meet at the end of the month. Does that suit?
Perfect,
Yep.
perfect.
Okay.
Send me through the request. Let me know my time slot, and I'll be there.
I'll do that soon.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, great. And I'm just going to leave you with a quote that I find really interesting. Well, the quote that it will never happen to me. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is something that I found. So, and I'll read it. When anyone asks me how I can best describe my experiences of nearly 40 years at sea, I merely say uneventful. Of course, there have been winter gales and storms and fogs and the like. In all my experience, I have never been in an accident of any sort worth speaking about. I've seen but one vessel in distress in all my years at sea, a brig, the crew of which was taken off in a small boat in charge of my third officer. I never saw a wreck and have never been wrecked, nor was I ever in any predicament that threatened to end in disaster of any sort. I will say that I cannot imagine any condition which could cause a ship to founder. I cannot conceive any vital disaster happening to this vessel. Modern shipbuilding has gone far beyond that. Who said that? Captain of the Titanic. And not long before it sunk, actually, he was quoted saying that to a reporter in the local newspaper. So, interesting one. It will never happen to me. Never say it. Let's think safety. So, yeah, and again, if you like that, please send it down the line.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Luke. It is appreciated. I know you're busy.
Thank you.
Okay.